West.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, there's one up there. There's one left right there. So like, there's all the marsh behind it, so like, there's all kinds of like neighbors that can.
Right.
Oh, yeah, well, they got you, but she moved over. That's why they,
Kept it off.
yeah, back in the days, it's always been back on the initiative.
Leave your brother up here by himself.
Smoking
He used to always stop and talk about me. I had many RVs across country team. I have 6 RVs.
It's Margaret, their house, water house.
They've always only put 4 RVs on the second half, 1,200 gallons. I don't understand
This one, she's already
Don't get under his arm. He was such a good kid. Nobody knows. Everybody.
All right, I think we're ready to get started. We're gonna stand and issue down, please, and pray for all of us.
Father in heaven, we come again now thanking you for life, health, and strength. We come blessing your name because your name worthy to be blessed. We come asking your blessing upon this county, this country. Lord, and we do need your help now. As we delve through this meeting, we ask you that you bless us and we make the right decision for all our people. We thank you and we bless you now. And we love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to our meeting Tuesday, September 16th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We have a conference line set up. The number there is 1917-900-1022. Access code is 32347#. This is not a toll-free number, and you may be subject to long-distance charges according to your long-distance plan. When the chairperson opens the meeting for public comment, please follow the below instructions. If you wish to speak, please dial *5. The moderator will unmute your line when it's your turn to speak and notify you by announcing the last 4 digits of your telephone number. Please announce your name and address. You will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the board regarding an agenda item will be given 3 minutes for comment. A commenter may only speak 1 time for each agenda item. With that said, we'll move on to item 3. Did everyone get your updated agenda? If no questions, we'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All in favor? Aye. All right, looking at our consent items. Everyone had a chance to go over your consent items. Any questions, discussions from the board? If no questions, no discussion, we'll obtain a motion to approve our consent items.
I'll move.
Motion by Commissioner Dent, do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Moody, all in favor? Aye. All right, jump down to bids and public hearing, item 19. The board to discuss and receive public input at 6 p.m. on the Steinhatchee Coastal Park Planning Project. Avcon Incorporated, a consulting firm selected to complete the study, will be in attendance of agenda by Melody Cox. Grant writer. Melanie?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Melanie, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I hope y'all are doing great. Before I get started on this, I know the risk grant for Steinhatchee Commercial Seafood was a consent item, but I just want to thank all the folks from Steinhatchee for their help on this project. I just can't thank everybody enough for all their help. So with that being said, we're now to have our first stakeholder meeting for the Steinhatchee Coastal Park. As you know, we were awarded a risk grant for the design, planning, and permitting for that park site. We plan on having the second stakeholder meeting September 30th in Steinhatchee. We will get out an advertisement on that and let everybody know what time we're planning on doing 5 or 6 of that evening. AvCon will again be there to receive public input. They're there tonight. And John will be up in just a few minutes here, but of course we want to receive all the public input that we can. We anticipate this park being primarily a passive park due to the different wetland issues. We have completed the surveying that's required as part of the grant scope that has been completed. Wetland delineations are underway, and we hope, 6 months from now that we are good to go on this and ready to apply for some funding to make this park a reality. It's been a long time coming for many people. We hope to get some great ideas, and I want to let everybody know we want to make everybody's dreams come true, but you do have to pursue it on what is reasonable, what is attainable, and what the Board of Commissioners can maintain. So hopefully we get some great ideas from everyone, and I'll let John give his presentation and then I'll be back with you before the end.
Thank you, Melanie.
Evening, Commissioners. John Collins with DAPMA. I know this project has been a goal for a while for the county to get to, and I'm excited to be here today and really start this process. Like Melanie mentioned, the survey, all the field work on the topo survey has been complete. The surveyor is processing all the data, so we should have that back pretty soon. And the environmental work has started. So wetland delineation, wildlife assessment, that type of work, that's already begun. But before we really started putting any thoughts on paper, we wanted to get input, both from you and from the public, about what would you like to see in the park. Now, the parcel itself, you can see on the screen, the parcel, it's 62 acres, but based on what we're looking at least half of that is likely going to be wetlands. And we're not proposing any kind of wetland impacts on this project, so we have to stay at least 25 feet away from any wetlands. Obviously, the south portion of the property is pretty wet, and it does look like there's some wetland fingers that kind of extend up from the coast up into the property. So I'm really eager to get that delineation back to get a good look at what kind of uplands do we have to work with. Because right now, what we've talked about with the county is, of course, a parking lot, whether that's paved or grassed. I'm curious to get your feedback on that. But walking trails, seating areas, definitely large open areas for seating. Possibly an amphitheater similar to what's down the street at Forest Capital area. I know that there's some desires for some type of kayak launches. We'll have to take a look at that once we get the surveys back and see if we can make that happen on the south end of the parcel. But restrooms, we also included restrooms in the in the design part of the project. So we'll make sure we have a good location for those restrooms. Another item to think about is there's an access road both on the north of the property and on the east side. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do we want to have the main entrance coming from the north off that road, or do we want to have it on the east side? Just something to think about. Again, we don't have to nail down these everything tonight. Really, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you'd like to see, these types of things. Like Melanie mentioned, we do have a follow-up public meeting in Steinhatchee at the community center on September 30th. So of course, anybody who's not able to attend tonight, or if people want to give some thought tonight and also attend the September 3rd meeting. That'd be great. I'll be there and we'll receive input at that point. So what we'll do is we'll receive input from everybody. We'll document, we'll kind of summarize everything, provide that back to the county, make sure we heard everybody properly before we start the planning phase, where we start laying this stuff out, parking lots, restrooms, walkways, all that kind of stuff. So with that, I think that's really, that's what I have from the introduction. So I'm not sure how you'd like to do this tonight, but maybe you can, I don't know if you, sir?
No, I would, probably before the boards, maybe we hear from the public.
Mhm.
Is that, I want to hear from the public. I think we probably have folks here who may want to speak.
Sounds great. So I'll just step somewhere. It's not a whole lot of room, but I'll see you out of the way and and I'll take notes on what's said tonight. And then once the public's done, then absolutely, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yep, okay. So we'll open it up to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if anyone from the public that wants to speak, just,
I'm gonna turn it around too, y'all.
Sure.
So my name is Danielle Norwood. I'm live in Steenhatchee for 30 years now, and I own the Seahag Marina. I have a dream of wetlands, even though they said, we have delineation. But when I go visiting other counties, I go and look for this. And I love that you can walk through the wetlands, on boardwalks, to see the sunset and, just see wildlife. I'd love to see, put our history and our habitats out for educational purposes for when our kids walk around. I'd love to have the kayak launch, and I just have the walking trails through the wetlands. So that's one of my big goals. My other goal would be a ball field because we need one really bad, but, and so all y'all can see, this is kind of my dream. And I'm hoping we can do something like that.
anyone else from the public?
Got it. I'll take a picture.
Good evening, bear with me, I'm not very good at this. My name is Jeff Morrow, I live in Steenhatchee, 1610 Wildwood Drive. I have some concerns, some questions and opinions from what I just gathered here. This pretty much a done deal, it's going forward. It kind of changes how I look at my questions and my.
I don't think anything's a done deal. I think this is opening discussions to the public.
Okay, I just, just thinking outside the box. What's the value of that 60 acres?
Have to be determined by the survey and what uplands you have as well as lowlands, so that's gonna give you value. So don't numbers.
I have an idea that after the last 2 years of 2 storms, the county does not have a very good footprint in Steenhatchee. So when we have an event, okay, like we had the last 2 years, there's really been no place to rally or have PODs, points of distribution. So is that land there, if you put money into it, doesn't have much multi-purpose to it. On the other hand, if we put some land, if we were able to maybe swap this land with some land up on 51 that's on high ground that's X instead of what A and AE over there, we'd have some land that in an emergency, we'd have a rally point. We'd have some place where we could actually have some multi-purpose to land. We could have ball fields there, we could have, whatever you want. I'm just thinking what we've experienced the last 2 years with the storms, it might be a better multi-purpose idea. How much revenue, tax revenue, does 60 acres produce for you guys?
Tax revenue, so it's not on the tax roll, it's the county owns it.
Okay, so it's not gonna create any kind of revenue.
Well, if you have an event center, you're gonna bring in tourism and that's gonna generate med tax, that's gonna generate.
I saw that you guys are thinking about using it for festivals and stuff like that.
I certainly think that's on the table, yes, sir.
Would you be able to have alcohol there, being a county property?
I think it would depend on if it was, something that was agreed on going into that.
Will the new structures need to be to the elevated code? Will the bathrooms need to be to the elevated code?
I think it has to be determined by the elevation that's to come out of the delineation.
Any idea what the maintenance cost would be? You guys just went through a tough budget battle here. I watched on TV the last few.
I think those have to be determined by what you have there. I mean, I don't think you can say tonight it's gonna be X, because we don't know what those futures.
So we're going into it unestimated, and that's gonna potentially have an effect on your budget.
I'm not sure that I would say unestimated, I mean, but obviously, if you improve that property, you're gonna have maintenance costs.
I think a better question may be, wondered, will we have staff to maintain?
I mean, that's always a concern. It really depends on what's there. If it's boardwalks and it's passive and it's more for people, you know, just to walk boardwalks or whatever, then it will be easier for us. If it's something that we have to mow or fields that we have to maintain, that's maybe more of a challenge for us.
Do you think that the current staff would be able to take on 32 acres?
I don't know that we would. I mean, it's just hard to say, but maintenance is always a concern as we add infrastructure. Yes, especially, and to your point, especially if we're going into uncertain budget times, I mean, that's something that we would have to look at. Now, it's possible if, you know, there, on the flip side, there may be a way to produce revenue from that side to offset maintenance costs. And that's always a possibility. Or
what would that gross have to be to create the net tax income?
I don't know, because we don't even, I mean, this is all so speculative at this point.
I'm trying to say that's a lot of money, it's a lot of sales to create $80,000.
It would depend from.
Well, but I do think we do have a pattern in respect to, you know, we already have a sports complex that we maintain.
What's that cost to run a year?
So, yeah, it depends on the intensity of that maintenance. So those things change. But what I would say is, it's something that we're able to do currently. And I would equate that to, correct me, Mr. Clerk, but the boat ramp fees are utilized for maintenance and upkeep on the boat ramps, correct?
Right.
So if you had a fee for use of such as that,
Even, or do you guys make money?
well, there's actually, there's a surplus there.
There's a surplus, but it, you know, like they have replaced docks, so I mean, it's used for that purpose only.
So is it net zero? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's a surplus.
We're kind of talking about this piece right here, so I'd rather keep our discussion to the pieces on it.
I agree, but that relates to my question, so I can get it answered, that's all.
Can I ask one more question? Does the county allow volunteer groups to help with maintaining such a park? Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of support for this project.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, depending on what they're maintaining. So just as an example, we have some community centers, and there are volunteer groups that you know, rent out these centers, and they use that revenue to help with maintenance. And then if it's something major, you know, the county would step in and assist with that.
What effects will it have? I imagine the study is going to tell us what effects it's going to have on neighboring properties.
So
The development of it.
I guess it depends so it depends on the traffic pattern, don't you think, John? So that, and I'm assuming that's something that you will look at, and the road condition of, you know, traveling to that parcel. So
We
it
can look at
depends
that.
on if you have events there. I mean, again, this is kind of unknown at this time.
Mhm.
But you would be traveling for the most part through a residential neighborhood.
Right, to get there, correct.
Right.
Is there actually a demand for more parks? I've lived here a couple, 3 years now. I know I'm not a 30-year, but Dallas Creek, Hagen's Cove appear to be totally underutilized. There's never a crowd there, there's never a wait there. The ball fields at the school have not been used since May. And they probably only saw about 24 practices in the spring, and we didn't have any games there this year. I think just the demand for another ball field, I don't know if I'm seeing it. I'm a coach, I coach baseball. I don't know that I see the demand there right now. You know, the playground at the community center, if we're gonna do a playground there, there's never a wait for us to go down the slide at the community center. There's never a wait for a swing, so. I'm concerned about population. The last 2 years, you know, we've probably lost residents, and we haven't had very many new residents because of the storms. And that's only gonna continue to go downward for a couple of years, I'm imagining. So, to get off my soapbox here, my humble opinion, county should focus on 3 things right now. It should be increased revenues, job creation, and affordable housing. There are 30 FEMA housing units in Taylor County right now. And in about 6 months, they're all gonna disappear, they're gonna go away. So we have the potential to have 30 homeless families. Also, we have, about 200 of the Santa's campers that came in. And I know that people are all still living in those, but I bet you half of those are utilized still, because that's what they're living in. I just think that spending $300,000 now and whatever it's gonna cost to put this park in, I'm not against the park. Don't get me wrong, I think I'm against the park at this time. Because you got people that are still hurting and struggling from the storm, and it's just terrible optics that we're gonna go putting money into a park when people don't have a roof over their head. So, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Paul Greenwell. A couple things were said, that there's already a ball field in Stanahatchee, but that ball field is locked. It's owned by the school system. And so unless you get permission or a volunteer to come over and unlock it, can't be used. We do need a ball field. We need a multi-purpose field. My thoughts are is if you build a baseball field with the amphitheater behind center field, people can come out, bring their lawn chairs and watch something there. Softball can be played there, soccer, football. So a multi-purpose field. But in building a multi-purpose field, we need to start thinking about lights, concrete, dugouts, press box, and that is expensive. We understand it. But I think I would appreciate if it was considered, if not there, then somewhere in Stanahatchee, because there is no other park. And the closest place for the kids to go play softball is Cross City. I'm all for kayaking and fishing and scenic, and I can't wait to walk the boardwalks and that. But I would hope that y'all would consider a ball field.
Just thought would that be something that could be phased?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So, I mean, a multi-use field, that may be the foundational piece, but then the amenities that come along with that in an additional phase.
Absolutely.
And the kayak launch, you understand, so that property is situated along the paddle trail, which is quite key when it comes down to the potential in the future. So I do think it's a great point with the kayak launch option somewhere along the way in the
And I kayak Dallas Creek, Rocky Creek, Sink Creek, and that on both sides, both counties. I've seen times when I've been there that there is no parking, so it is used. Dallas Creek is probably one of the most used areas. But the one over Sink Creek and then I think now they're asking FEMA to repair the bridge at Cow Creek, going out the road to nowhere. So the county is looking for, Dixie County is looking for more kayaking, and I think we also should be looking for more,
They've got potential with the location of the paddle trail, whether that be coming up from Cow Creek, Dixie County, or coming over from Keaton into that location. You're gonna see that potential traffic.
I think you're gonna see a lot of tourism coming there. I mean, there's not a day goes by that you're not in Stanahatchee to see 2 to 3 cars with kayaks going somewhere. That's right. Thank you.
This is Melody.
Go ahead, Bill.
I just want to add to that the Stanahatchee River is a state designation paddling and kayak trail. In addition, the Big Bend saltwater paddling trail and the Florida Cervix navigational trail are right there along our coastline, so that site could very well serve as a trailhead. In addition, as you know, we've submitted for trail funding to construct a trail from Sinnel to Keaton, which would be part of the statewide trail system. And as we discussed previously, it's also part of our walkability plan that we have completed by Florida Commerce. We intend on applying for student action to serve as the Florida Gateway Trail System for both walking and paddling trails. So that site can come into play very well as a wonderful trailhead for all those activities.
Would that option be a positive in respect to seeking future grant funding and the qualifications that are required?
I have full confidence, as you know, this grant we have right now is 100% grant funded, no cost to the county. And I have if there's ever a project I've worked on, I have absolute confidence that we can get 100% funding for anything infrastructure-wise. At the site, we would be eligible for FERDAP, Land and Water Conservation Fund, Coastal Partnership Initiative, Florida Office of Greenways and Trails. We have Restore funding. So we have quite a few options with. You can go back to RIF for infrastructure because it's for economic development for FEMA. So we have so many funding options available where we can waiver a match and make this project happen with no cost to the county as far as anything infrastructure development wise.
I have a quick question. Melody, how far is this site from Sherrod Island? Do you know? I mean, and isn't that an overnight parking spot on the paddling trail?
Not even longer.
Not any longer?
County does not allow that currently.
No more camping? Do we know how far?
I believe, Michael, that eventually FEMA's gonna be in there working, and they're using the campsite at Sherrod Island. We'll be using it for FEMA lay down area.
They could be additionally, but I think currently they're closed.
Yeah, right now, yeah, because they, clean up an area like that.
That's a recent decision, but it is current.
Is it permanently closed? Do you know?
That's the DC County Board of County Commissioners question.
Oh, Jody,
Is that?
oh, Jody Steve, you said.
Well, there may be 4 other folks that might have a different view.
So I've heard maybe a multi-use ball field and all into that. I heard amphitheater, but I would just, for me, I would probably caution the location just for the events that we've just witnessed the last year and a half to build something of such magnitude and have one of these events come by and destroy it, and then you gotta go fix it somehow.
Well, I
I do
think,
like the idea of what Ms. Norwood brought up with the photos of the walking trails and even the kayak one upstairs as well.
Was that in an 8 zone?
But,
No.
I'm sorry.
I was asking what zone, I would think anything that was built would have to be elevated to a certain degree.
I'm thinking of, multi-use ball field and even theater portion of maybe we have other locations down in that area that's potentially more inland to look at that would make a little more sense and maybe not get destroyed just as fast.
I believe there's a title influence.
Open for public comment? Can I speak?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a public record.
Okay, I didn't know if you were speaking, I wanted to make sure.
No, you're good.
So my name's Anna King. I'm a Senatchee resident, but I also work for State Rep Jason Shope, but I'm here on my behalf. I would implore you to look into with these ideas. Don't think traditional ball field, think some type of grass. I would definitely say Senatchee is not conventional in any way. So anytime we think about this, I wouldn't think of the ballpark we have here. These kids can play on a grass field. They, get creative with it. Same thing with the amphitheater. I don't believe that would have to be elevated. Obviously, your bathrooms, that's going to be a whole another mess and conversation. But with the amphitheater, it could be something where maybe it doesn't have restrooms if it's not required, but for special events, they have to bring them in and you can have duty calls or something. I wouldn't get hung up on that idea. But my thought with the amphitheater is you could definitely generate revenue, but there's so many different things. We could have our theater there for kids. We could do a few different things, but don't get hung up on what they have in St. Pete. Don't get hung up. It's gonna have to be something Steinhatchee. We're never gonna be conventional. We are not conventional. So I wouldn't get hung up on that thought. And I definitely think, you know, moving forward with coming up with ideas on how to make this generate revenue, you definitely have a partner with the state. We definitely would like to see something happen in our community. And we're very creative as well. And I know with Commerce, Secretary Kelly is absolutely amazing. And I want to mention something that, kind of what Jeff was on the lines of with housing and these different things. Sometimes, and the grant writer can speak to this grant is specific to something of this nature, so you can't use it for other things. So we do have to find different grants if we want to find housing for our community. We'll have to work on those things, and I definitely would implore anyone with ideas, you can reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to help and connect you with the right people so we can start working on that. But don't think like, okay, we're doing this project that we're not thinking about other people within our community, because I can tell you that these board members and our community have really put in hard thoughts on how to move forward and do things, and we just have to keep moving forward for the sake of moving forward. And I think this is something that would bring something really bright to our community, and it would open other doors that you may not see initially. Because when you have one person that comes in that they came here and launched their kayak, they may be the Amazon CEO or something crazy, and they say, hey, I want to invest in this community. And those things do happen. So, keep an open mind and just don't be conventional when you think about this project. And please call me. I'd love to help.
Anyone else in the public?
How you doing, Mark Revlin? She's exactly right. We don't have to build this amphitheater that can be destroyed. We can build something that will withstand these, you can take it apart, fix it, move it, whatever. There's ways we can do it. Excuse me?
More open design.
Exactly. There's ways we can do this. I mean, you can put a wall up on everything, but there's ways we can do this. As far as maintenance, Steinhatchee will figure a way to maintain that property. If the county can't afford it, we'll figure it out. We're not gonna let this thing go, because all we have in Steinhatchee is, all we can do is entertainment. That's all we do. We don't have an industry. That's our industry, is entertainment. We need another facility for entertainment, to be able to create this entertainment network, that we can bring in tax dollars. So, I mean, it's a spot. I mean, it's beautiful boardwalk. I mean, there's just so many possibilities out there, and it's all gonna be, we can get the funding. There is funding available for all these.
Question would be, the expansion of a theater type or a bandshell type area would give you further options that you currently wouldn't have.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we started that festival with zero. We have 15,000 people there, okay? So give us a facility. We can build another event that brings in a pile of money. It's just we have to have the spot. We don't have the spot.
Well, that location could work in tandem through the festival and other events throughout the year.
I mean, it's tons and tons, and there's keywords, and Melanie knows the keywords, and when you can generate revenue and show the state that this is gonna make money, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna help us put this thing together. That's just, I don't see it being a bad idea. And right now, the grant money, it's, like she said, that money is earmarked for certain things, and it's not like we're taking it away from somebody else. So it's a win-win. Thank you.
So given the timing of that, would you say, I mean, of course, I know you guys talked about it at the chamber and through the community, but understanding it's gonna take some time to get that funding, wouldn't that be a help in this process of recovery?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And as far as staging for the hurricane, they staged between Big Bend Water and the power company. We had bathrooms, we had showers, we had laundry facilities. The National Guard was there. So, I mean, we can make do. So either that or, do we want to see that thing go to condos? Park's a better idea to me. So, but that's my comment.
Anyone else from the public?
There is someone on the line.
Anyone online?
This is Melody, and can I let me say something else as part of this park? We have, as you know, we've submitted a budget amendment, to make Hodges Park resilient. And, that's before the board council right now. And let me tell you, it has been a huge learning experience, through this process on constructing parks to resiliency standards. Ms. LaWanda can vouch how much work this budget amendment request has been, but in turn, we've learned a great deal on how to better make our parks resilient. So that will be taken into account every step of the way on anything infrastructure we construct at this site to make sure that it is resilient, has resiliency materials. But I think, you know, the changes we're making to Hodges will definitely help with the development of this park site too, and being hurricane ready.
Got someone on the line?
Yes.
What's their,
His name is Ken Booth.
their last?
His number is 3474.
3474, if you will, state your name and address.
This is Ken Booth, 803 Bird Pond Road.
Ken?
I would like, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I would like to address the park and the wetlands and echo Danielle's comment. Having a boardwalk, having a kayak place, maybe even a bike trail, something like that. As opposed to having to build a lot of infrastructure, buildings, amphitheaters, ball fields, all those are nice things to have, but a large paved or just gravelled area that you could set something up at, hold a kayak event, like a tournament to bring people in, hold a kayak paddling event, going, as someone said, from Shard Island up to Keaton, etc., along the trail or coming down the river. All of those things will bring tourists, which will bring the money, which will revitalize and help people who don't have jobs and don't have homes, because the infrastructure that would be, the money that would be spent on infrastructure to put buildings and other things in there aren't needed in order to bring people in currently. It's a place to park your car, go on that walk, put your kayak in the water, or have an event. Buildings aren't needed for that, with the exception of a restroom.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? All right. Anyone else on the line? Okay, we'll close the public hearing now. Is, any comments from the board?
Sure. I think it sounds like a great opportunity, and I could certainly support, Danelle, your vision. I think that's really what I would be thinking that in terms of also, so very much in support of this.
Okay. Anyone else on the board?
Well, I just say, I mean, it's a great accomplishment to have the funding to get to this point for all these considerations. And thank you to the public for all those concerns and voicing those considerations. Look forward to the next meeting. And I think there's some great ideas, but I also am fully convinced that the utilization of this resource is necessary when it comes down to the community and the attribute that it can be to the residents and the tourists that will be attracted there alike. So just excited about the opportunity and all these great ideas.
All right. Anyone else on the board? All right. Melanie, John, you guys, anything you want to close with? I know there's a meeting on September the 30th.
Yeah, that's really it, sorry. That's all right. So I really do appreciate everybody's comments. I got some great information tonight. So we'll still have a meeting on September 30th, get additional comments from residents, and then what I'll do is I'll put together a little white paper of what we discussed, comments provided, and, and then we'll reconvene and, probably meet with the county one more time before we actually go into the planning phase. We start laying stuff out. And I do like the idea of it being a phased approach. There may be some items that might be some, maybe if the county proceeds with ball fields, either multi-use or specific ball fields, we could start off day one with a large sodded, well-draining field, and then, or you can use it for kind of unofficial sporting events, and then over time, convert those to baseball, soccer, whatever you want to do with that. You're providing most of the infrastructure up front, but you can add some additional like dugouts and stuff like that if you did want to in the future. So we can certainly look at this. We will put together a master plan for the whole site that identify, hey, here's phase one, parking lot, restrooms, whatever the primary elements are. Let's get those done, and we can look at phase 2 and 3 when additional grant funding becomes available for it.
Do you have a timeframe on expending these funds?
Melody would have to chime in on that one. I'm not sure.
Yes, we got a little behind on it, as you know, because of Hurricane Helene. So I have monthly meetings with our Board of Commerce people, and we have requested, because the grant requires permitting on what we intended initially do. So the grant deadline was December 30th, but they're in the process of drafting an extension to June 30th of 2026 to make sure we have plenty of time to get that permitting completed. So that is our deadline on that, and will get us ready to move forward with future grant applications after the permitting is complete and we're ready to go. And that will help substantially obtaining funding too. When you have those studies completed and your permitting ready to go, it really makes your grant application so much stronger. So we'll be in a really good point to do for it.
And along with the design documents, and once we permit it, we'll have a cost estimate that goes with it. So when it comes to asking for additional funds, we have an idea of what we need to be requesting from the agencies.
Mr. Chairperson, just a quick question. So John, is this going to take an ERP? And are we just going to avoid the wetland areas so we don't have to worry about mitigation?
So the assumption was that if we were not impacting any wetlands, we do need to go through the ERP process with the Water Management District for the stormwater improvements. But yeah, there will be at this point, there's no proposed wetland impacts.
Okay, so then we don't have to worry about mitigation. And you think we can have that ERP completed by June 30th?
Oh yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. I could see us having final design documents probably, February, March, and then that gives us 3 months to go through the stormwater permitting process.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. All right, well, I appreciate the time. We'll keep you updated as we go through the process, and we'll schedule another meeting.
Very good. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. So.
Thank you, everyone.
September 30th, Steve Hatchie Community Center. All right, we'll move on to our constitutional officers, other governmental units. Item 20, the board to consider approval of Big Bend Water Authority 2025-2026 budget.
Mark Reverend, another year has gone by, and we're asking for your consideration for our upcoming budget. Anticipating a little bit of growth. We have been growing, putting back together what we got existing, so it's going to be a banner year for the next couple of years, but we're going to continue moving forward with what we got. We're doing, finishing up on our sewer plant. It'll be done probably in another 30 days, doing our septic to sewer conversions. We got 19 more going in right now, and we have our water line, Riverside Drive, water main replacement project coming up, so. Very good.
Any questions, Mr. Reverend? If you could kind of expand on some of the funding efforts
for future?
Yeah, well, we got.
I know we've discussed
We have a
that.
plethora of projects that we're trying to get some of this money that's out there. Whether or not what we'll get, we don't know. The thing is the thing they want is, DEP wants is they want pictures of damages. And then, you know, really, in reality, the water plant did get damaged, the sewer plant did get damaged. I mean, we had, you know, our infrastructure, some of our distribution got damaged, but ultimately, we didn't lose the roof, and then, you know, we sustained it fairly well. Our power stayed up, you know, so it's gonna be a little challenge to get them convinced that, because we did lose, we got grinder stations that we got wet, electrical panels that got wet, and racing and stuff, so it's a little bit hard to convince them that we are, we are in the need. But I know we're gonna get some stuff, but I don't know exactly what, you know, but we've thrown so much stuff up against the wall right now, so I don't know what's gonna stick yet, but we'll know.
In the days post Helene, wasn't it just hours before you guys really were back online water-wise and restoring that
Yeah,
service?
we were down for, I mean, we shut a lot of the west side of town because of bleeding, but we weren't down for 3 hours. We were on a boil of water for 2 weeks, but I had a group of people that we didn't stop, we just kept going. Still doing it, so. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for him? If no other questions, we'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Commissioner Lee, we got a second? Second by Commissioner Zepps, all in favor? All right. Item 21, Taylor Furnace CPA Powell and Dillon CPA to present the financial report audit for fiscal year ending 2024, and the board to consider approval of audit presented by Danielle Wells, County Finance Director.
Okay. Thank you all for having me. Pleasure to be here and go over your September 30th, 2024 audit. This audit starts October 1st, 2023. On the second slide, each one of these slides you'll notice references the page numbers in the reports if you ever want to go to the audit report, which is quite lengthy. You can find those references there and you can go to those pages. I'm going to start with the audit opinion, which is towards the front of the report on pages 8 to 10. This report states that we conducted our full financial audit of the county, which includes the board and each of the 5 constitutional officers of the county. The audit was conducted in accordance with auditing standards, which include generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and state single audit standards. The objective of an audit is to receive an unmodified or clean opinion from your auditors. We're pleased to say that the county received its highest level of assurance during this audit, which is a good reflection on the quality of the financial records and internal control procedures of the board and its constitutional officers. On pages 11 to 17 of the report, we have management's discussion and analysis. This section contains certain required overview information for the county. So if you're looking for kind of broad overview instead of reading the whole thing, that would be a great place to start if you're looking for a brief snapshot of the county's financial performance. The next slide. Governmental funds balance sheet on page 22 of the report. This has the county's 4 major funds, as well as the 39 non-major funds, which are consolidated into one column on this report. There's a total of 43 governmental funds. Those non-major funds are consolidated for clarity, but they're broken out in more detail on pages 89 to 91 of the financial statements. The next slide goes in a little more detail on the balance sheet. It's a snapshot of the financial view of all of these governmental funds as of September 30th, 2024. And the highlights are on the next page.
I'm showing two columns here, one for your general fund, which is the lion's share of the county, and then the other column, which includes all of the governmental funds activities for the year. We have your total assets, which for the total government was $56,329,000. For liabilities, you had $14,673,000. The difference between those is your fund balance, or essentially your net worth as of year end. This was segregated into several main components. You had restricted fund balances, which were $12,437,000, assigned fund balances of $9,098,000, and unassigned fund balances of $20,118,000, bringing your total fund balances or net worth to $41,655,000. The unassigned fund balance, which represents the amount of your fund balance which can be used to fund ongoing operations. Basically, this is money that you can use and spend freely. Represents 48% of your expenditures for the year, which is approximately 6 months of expenditures. So that's a very solid reserve. The Government Finance Officers of America recommends having at least 2 months in reserve, and you have 6, so that's good, which obviously is very important for weathering storms and other unusual events like that. On the next slide, we have the governmental fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the fiscal year ended September 2024. This is essentially like a profit and loss statement. Once again, I have 2 columns here, one for the general fund and one for the total governmental funds. For revenues for the year, you had $44,106,000. For expenditures, you had $41,263,000, and you also had other financing sources and uses, which created an increase of $1,313,000. Total net change in fund balance, or basically profit for the year, was $4,156,000. Now that's a total for the government as a whole. You can see over in the general fund, you had a profit of $4,686,000. So the general fund runs positive, your other governmental funds run negative, and it subsidizes those operations. The net change as a percentage of your revenues, essentially like your profit margin for the year, you can see for your general fund was about 17%, and for your total government was about 9%. Okay. Below this, I have a prior year comparison. You can see that the general fund had a large increase in its net change. It was 1.2 million of an increase in the prior year. We had a 4.6 this year. In the prior year for the government as a whole, you had 4 million as an increase, and then in the current year you had 4,156,000 as an increase. So both of those were positive results compared with the prior year. I'd like to also note your capital outlay, your investment in your infrastructure, also greatly increased. You can see that for the government as a whole, you had 6.5 million expended in the prior year with 10 million in the current year. So positive trends there. Moving on to the next slide. This is, so you have proprietary fund or enterprise fund, which is utilized by the county operations, which are intended to fully operate from user charges. Enterprise funds utilize business accounting principles. The county maintains one enterprise fund, which is its airport enterprise. The next slide. This is the proprietary fund statement of net position. Is on page 25. This is similar to a balance sheet and provides a snapshot visual view of those funds as of September 30th, 2024. The financial highlights are as follows. They had total assets of $297,000, liabilities of $55,000, and a net position of $241,000, of which $153,000 is unrestricted and can be used for ongoing operations, representing approximately 4.6 months of your expenditures. So once again, in excess of that ideal minimum of 2. On the next slide, we have the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, which is on page 26 of the big report. This is similar to a profit and loss for that airport enterprise. You had operating revenues of $467,000, operating expenses of $402,000.
Net operating income was $64,000. You had transfers out of $36,000, bringing the total net change in net position to an increase of $28,000. You also had very positive cash flows. You had an increase of $45,000 year over year from $142,000 to $187,000. Moving on to the next slide. Here we have a summary of your capital assets, which is displayed in detail on the full report on page 46. It shows these assets broken out between your governmental activities and your business type activities, which is your airport enterprise fund. Total assets government-wide for the year were $84,948,000. This is an increase of $3,816,000 over the prior year. Moving on to the next slide. Here we have your long-term liabilities, which is on page 54 of the big report. During the year, total long-term liabilities decreased by $160,000. The following schedule shows the balances as of year end. You can see that the primary balance here is your net pension liability, which represents the county's share of the deficit in the state retirement system. This is based on actuarial assumptions about how much those future benefits are going to cost the state system, as opposed to the assets that are in the plan. And right now, your portion of that estimated liability is $18.4 million. Now, that's not something that's going to have to be paid out tomorrow. That's going to be paid out over the estimated, or out of the remaining lives of all your employees through increased contribution rates to the Florida Retirement Systems plan. So you can expect continued increases in those contributions by the county. On the next slide, we have the report on internal control and compliance, which is on page 98 and 99 of the full report. Audit procedures required by government auditing standards go beyond financial issues and include internal control over financial reporting and on compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and related matters. We're pleased to say that there were no findings in this report. Good job there. Moving on to the next slide. Here we have our state single audit report. This is on pages 100 and 101 of the full report. During the fiscal year, you expended over $750,000 of state financial assistance or grants from the state, which required us to complete a single audit on your major state projects. As part of this audit, we review your compliance and internal controls over compliance for your major programs. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on your major state projects. The full listing of all federal and state awards can be found on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance on pages 102 and 103. Management letter on pages 105 to 106. This letter is required by Chapter 10.550 Rules of the Auditor General and contains follow-up on prior audit findings and a financial condition assessment to determine whether deteriorating financial conditions exist or whether there was a state of financial emergency. In the follow-up on prior year audit findings section, we had one prior audit finding, 2023-01, regarding the sheriff's accounting software conversion and staffing issues. We're pleased to say that this finding was substantially corrected in the current year. Next, for the financial condition assessment, the county was not in a state of financial emergency and was not in a state of deteriorating financial conditions. As we clearly seen previously, financial operating results are pretty good for the county for this year. Next, we have your independent accountants report on page 107. Rules of the Auditor General require that we perform procedures to verify compliance in the following areas: investment in public funds, E911 grant compliance, the clerk's court-related budgetary compliance, and clerk's compliance with state court performance standards. We performed appropriate procedures and had no findings related to these matters. On the next slide, we have the schedule of findings and question costs, which is on page 108. This schedule identifies the major state projects with the amount expended and lists any findings for both financial and state single audits. The major projects selected for single audit testing were as follows. Financial assistance number 55.016 for the Small County Outreach Program, from the Florida Department of Transportation and assistance number 71.073 for the Taylor County Sheriff's Office jail expansion from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So pleased to say that we had no further findings during our audit. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Well, I do have a question. Is there any way that we can get the results of these audits sooner than a year later from
Yeah.
when the year ended?
This is one of the issues we addressed with Danielle. This is the last year we're going to be doing your audit, and that's because we've had certain bottlenecks in our senior level management that are able to do county reports. So we're not going to be doing this audit in the future. It's been a pleasure working with you guys for many years, but it's just difficult for us to be able to deliver this audit on time with the current staffing levels.
Another company.
Any other questions? You got one? Go ahead.
I don't have a question, I just want to make a comment. We have been working with Powell and Jones, I believe, since 1997, and we do appreciate the relationship and the work that we've had with them. But like he just said, they have notified us that they will not be able to continue the audit, so we will be coming back with an RFP to go out for proposals for a new auditor. So we'll be having that soon.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
And we need a motion to accept the audit, or just be a roll call
We have a
vote.
motion by Commissioner Dent to accept. Do you have a second? Second by Commissioner Moody. All in
We'll
favor?
do a roll call vote on this one, sorry. Commissioner English,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman, Commissioner Fegel,
Yes.
and Commissioner Dent.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on to general business, item 22. The board to consider approval of request to proclaim the week of September 21st, 2025 through September 27th, 2025 as Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival Week, agenda by Commissioner Newman.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think Ms. Perez is here in respect to this proclamation, and so it's obvious that this festival has been going for some time, and what a success rate and a real boost to our economy at a time when we certainly need it. So I was appreciative for all those efforts that go into that, and the teams that come in and all those things that take part in the festival, and a lot of success, as well as the bug show. Went away with that. So just wanted to be mindful of that and going into this year's festival.
Do we have a proclamation, we want to read it to its entirety? Motion, a motion by Commissioner Newman, you want to read it to its entirety?
Start.
Do we have a second?
Celebrate, Mr. Bishop.
Do we have a second?
I don't have a,
You don't
it
have
wasn't in my package.
I'll share it with you.
All right, we have a
Thank you
second.
very much.
We have a second. Do we have a
Read
second?
about title only, or you want to read it in dark?
His motion was in.
Yes, with all the facts that are in that
You get a second?
resolution.
I ain't got a second.
I got it. I
Got a
just,
second by Commissioner Dennis, all in favor?
Hang on, friends and neighbors, here we go. A resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Taylor County, Florida, which recognizes the week September 22nd, September 27th, 2025 as Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival Week. Whereas the annual Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival is held each year on the fourth weekend in September, and whereas the Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival annually has shown an economic impact of over $1,500,000 to our local economy. Got that right. And whereas the Smoking in the Pines Festival is celebrating 17 years of holding one of the largest and longest running barbecue competitions in the entire state. And whereas the Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival helps to preserve the tradition of professional competitions in the state of Florida for the Florida Barbecue Association and enables our county to showcase national and international teams to experience and celebrate professional barbecue competitions. And
whereas the Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival and events like this are vital for the showcasing our community to the many visitors who attend. And whereas in recognition of the Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival designation as one of the top 20 events in the southeastern United States and is annually one of the only competitions in the state that is a national qualifier for the World Food Championship competition held each year. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Taylor County, Florida, that they recognize the week of September 22nd through September 27th as Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival Week, and desire the citizens of Taylor County to celebrate Smoking in the Pines Barbecue Festival Week by attending and participating in the event to support this community. Passed in regular session the 16th day of September 2025.
Don, how many blues bands do you have lined up? Johnny Marshall?
No, I wasn't able to get him, but I did get King Cotton. We're slipping it back in, we're slipping it back.
All right, we have a motion to approve proclamation.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Siegel, second by Commissioner Moody, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Don. All right, item 23, the board to consider the appointment of one member to the Big Bend Water Authority Board of Directors.
There was one application received. It was received by the deadline, and it's for Mr. Stan Ridgway, who has served on this board for how many years, Commissioner Newman? A few.
Host of years.
Long time.
Long time.
Stan's well seasoned.
Yes.
Good. There's, no discussion or questions from the board, we'll entertain a motion to.
I move.
Motion by Commissioner Dance, second by Commissioner Siegel, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 24, Mr. Jeff Tompkins, P.E., Principal of Due Diligence Associates Incorporated, to provide update to the board regarding the Georgia Pacific DEP plant closure and permitting status.
Thank you for inviting me. This is to serve you all and hopefully anticipating interaction in the near future with GP. And so I wanted to, thank you for putting the purpose up. I wanted to, kind of review where we are in the permitting process, because I've been watching it since they finally got moving here, and kind of give you some anticipated time frame, so nothing moves quick, unfortunately, so, you can kind of anticipate that. There will be times of public input, and in fact, not only public input, it will be, if they're going to move forward the way they're asking, they're going to need your specific endorsement, to be honest with you. And so I want to talk about that with you and ways to think about it. And I also want to give you an opportunity to ask me questions. I've been feeding information, to LaWanda and the work I've done, and this will give you a chance to ask me, some more specific things that you may or may not. I work for you all, so you all decide that, right? So I want to hit quickly on this thing called the, next slide, thank you, RAI process, is request for additional information. Kind of jumping a little bit, they made an update to their application on their renewal of their wastewater permit, and they turned that in just August 7th, or here recently. The original renewal application actually went in February of 2024, and everybody's been kind of sitting on it, and it's kind of gotten moved. DEP actually told them they've got to move forward, and frankly, the lawsuit by Four Rivers kind of prompted them to move forward too, getting things moving here. So there was an application on the 7th. DEP actually has 60 days to review that application and then make a request for additional information. And if you notice the dates there, in a week, they put that RAI out. And that's because they were ready, knowing what they wanted to ask when that renewal application came in.
And just my opinion, DEP did a good job on the questions they asked. All right. You may tell me some things you wish they had asked, but at least from without asking you, in my review of it, I think DEP did a very good job in asking the right questions. All right. Now I'm going to cover those, and they have set a due date of the 11th of October. So GP is required to respond to those questions by the 11th. Now I caution, because there's actually a lot of opportunity for them to extend, right? If GP asks, and given the circumstances with the amount of information asked, it wouldn't be unreasonable for DEP to grant that extension just because of the amount of things that were requested in that RAI. So I just caution that. I talked to DEP yesterday, and there's been no request as of yesterday, and there's been no implication that they're going to make a request as of yesterday. But, you know, until you hit the 11th, you won't know officially whether they are going to make that extension request. And I would just, my opinion, if I was in DEP shoes and GP asked for the amount of information asked, if they were asked for an extension, I would be hard pressed to deny it, because there's a lot of information that was asked in that request. And so just in fairness, you'd like to think they've been preparing this stuff all the way along, and so maybe they're ready, but if not, there's some things that have got to happen there. I will tell you that if you go read the rules, the applicant actually has 90 days to respond to the request. DEP, I'm not sure why, but only gave them 60 days. And so, that's where it is right now. So they could just ask for the additional 30 days of what's in the rule, and we'll see. And the reality is that depending on the circumstances, they could ask for another extension too. So there is that potential, and I write that down. I just want you to realize there's a potential that it could go all the way to like February before they finally got all the information in. Now I'm guessing, and I want to be upfront with you, GP's not talking to me, so I'm not, this is a guess, right? But my guess is they're pushing hard because they've got that lawsuit going on the other side, right, with War Rivers that's pushing them to move on this thing. So from that standpoint, it's causing movement right now on the permitting process. So my guess is it's going to be quicker than that, but they do have their regulatory rights to make that request. All right, let's go to the summary. I wanted to hit on the high points. You all were sent the REI, and if you have questions about it, you can either ask them tonight specifically to me, or you could ask LaWanda to ask me, and I'd be glad to answer more specifically. But I wanted to hit the high points of what that request were, and then I want to end with something called anti-degradation, which is, to me, the key place that you all are going to participate in the future. All right. Some real, just straightforward things the DEP asked for is they've asked, just to make sure everybody knows, GP asked to move their point of discharge back to the old location that was there before the pipeline was put in 2020. And so it would move back to the location upstream of the US 19 bridge, and just it's 400 yards or so. You don't see it when you're there, but it's just upstream from that bridge. And and I say we, because I worked for them during that period of time. We discharged there since that was the point of discharge starting in 1972. So from 1972 until 2020, that was the point of discharge. So anyway, they wanted to verify just the infrastructure that was there. It's a big concrete pipe, wanted to make sure it's in good condition and all like that, if they're going to move back to that location. So they asked for that. They asked for a decommission plan on the wastewater treatment facility. In their application, most of the parts of the wastewater treatment system inside the plant proper, meaning not out there off of Red Padgett Road on the secondary part, were removed from the application as if they were being removed from the treatment system. And when a facility does that, they have to describe how they're going to close out and remove that, close that infrastructure out and clean it out and make sure that it's no longer, has any adverse effect. They won't be able to just choose to go back and use that once they remove it from the permit. So DEP has asked for how is all that going to be decommissioned. Those of you that are familiar with the plant, you got a primary clarifier area, you've got, the whole bar rack area and the settling basins and all like that. That's all got to be shown on how they're going to decommission that in this response. Next thing they've got to do is, they didn't address, they said, we're going to have an average amount of stormwater running. But as you all know, stormwater doesn't come in averages. It's peak, right? You have high rain events, and you have nothing. And yes, over a month it averages out, but your system has got to handle that peak amount. And so DEP wisely said, give us your peak calculations you're planning for, all right? They have a holding pond out south of Red Paget Road that's part of that treatment system out there. It's called the East Cell Holding Pond. And interestingly enough, GP described 3 uses in their application of that holding pond, 2 of which are new, and they didn't describe how they were going to do those 3 that, at least from my point of view, even seem incompatible. But they may have a plan, right? So they've been asked to describe how are they going to modify that system to do those 3, and part of it is the holding, the stormwater holding and the equalization. But the other is they said they were going to use it for sludge dewatering in the future. And I don't know how you do that, but they may have a plan, but they've been asked to describe it. They have certain sampling results, and this is real common in RAIs. They have certain results they've asked to go back and get additional samples and provide additional data, which I think is pretty normal. They've been asked to update their corporate officer certification. You may not have even picked up on the fact that the corporate officer responsible for the site changed here a while back, and they hadn't updated who, the papers with the DEP that the right person is actually signing the application. So they've been asked for that. They've been asked to give a detail of their groundwater withdrawal rates from the different wells. And as you know from my discussions with you in the past, that has an impact on the groundwater around that site and the groundwater protection on that site. So they've been asked for that on the production wells. And then a point or so later, they've asked for an updated monitoring plan on how they're going to make sure they protect the groundwater, updated monitoring plan. They've been asked for time frame and deadlines of all aspects of decommissioning, which is pretty phenomenal. That was one that actually surprised me. That's been information you all have been asking for a while and haven't got it. I think we're going to get it through this permit response at some level. All right. They want a specific site plan that depicts the impacts of the demolition activities, and new monitoring plan, and then this anti-degradation study. Obviously, there's more detail in the REI. If you go read it, 8 pages long or something, you can, but that's my summary of the key pieces of things that we're asking. Like I said, I think DEP did a good job of capturing everything that I see. The risk to a non-operating site that we've been saying for a while is the waste that's still on site and its potential contamination with the groundwater. You got to protect the groundwater until materials are protected or removed or something, right? And you got to protect the potential of stormwater, surface water, groundwater, surface water. DEP did a good job of focusing on those two aspects to make sure GP is doing their decommissioning plan correctly. Okay? Any questions at this point? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've had a lot of my constituents that worked out there for years, just like me, that know the sludge in those settling ponds and the holding ponds. How are they planning on getting that sludge out, and where, the people in Miller County don't want it dumped in that river?
Well, they can't dump it in the river, right? They're not permitted to dump it in the river, but I know your question is, where is it gonna go?
That's exactly right.
We don't know yet. Hopefully, they're gonna tell us, you know, with this response on the REI. We don't know.
I mean, you've seen holes in that alkaline out there, so that goes into the groundwater when that sludge.
If it goes through, that's right.
And how are they gonna clean up that went in those holes?
DEP knows those things, Mr. Moody, and DEP's waiting and requesting those answers too.
Every E-drain in that mill has got cracks in it, and full of sludge from every different direction in that mill going to the, for, you know, for clean it up. But that U-drain, is full of sludge too, I'm sure.
Well, just to remind you, you know, the fact that, you know, some people have wondered why are they keeping pumping, you know, on that production well as much as they are. And of course that, you know, that number 2 production well, which they're running, is what keeps the water level underneath the mill at a lower level, which has some negative impact, but it's got the positive impact in that when things rain, everything runs towards that production well, and therefore you do not risk it leaving underneath the plant site. So the very fact they're running that production well is actually assisting protecting the groundwater.
Right, I understand that part, but I just get a lot of questions from the general public.
No,
I can't give them a straight answer yet.
Well, and DEP doesn't know their specific plan. They told them they've got to provide a plan, and by the way, they've got, you know, they're using a consultant, Tetra Tech as a consultant, and they're a competent consultant. You know, they're a competent engineering firm, and I'm sure they will, you know, they're analyzing, you know, what's the best approach. Obviously, economics, I'm sure, are a piece of that. You know, I'm sure GP is not wanting to spend just extra money. They want to accomplish what's required at the best, you know, economic price.
Right.
And so I'm sure they're looking at those alternatives. Yeah.
But
hopefully here in a month, we'll have some information.
Well, the people know, you know, once it's cleaned up to a certain extent, you know, and the demo goes going on, every bit of that demo is gonna have a runoff. If you come a big flood of rain, storms, while they're demoing, you're gonna have a lot of runoff of black liquor out from under those tank bases and everything else. And that's what people do not want anything back dumped in that river right there at the mill. I mean, that's the general public. They don't want nothing to come out of there and go into that river.
Right.
If possible.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No,
I hope DEP will hold the gun on that.
Well, now we're gonna talk that piece, and when we talk to anti-degradation here on the permitting, right? You know, one of the big things they've asked is for an anti-degradation study, right? And I don't believe any of you were on the board at that time, but when I was with Buckeye, we presented that and requested support for an anti-degradation study when we moved to where the pipeline is. So, you know, I'm familiar with how those go, and just to give you, let's see here. Let's go to the anti-degradation study. You know, for years, you probably even heard me talk about water quality standards, and you had freshwater quality standards, and you had marine water quality standard. You know, brackish water, the beautiful picture there down there in the estuary of the Finn Holloway, is not fresh water, it's marine water. And actually, the state of Florida, the standards are slightly different. And you can see that. You don't drink water at the beach, right? It's salty, right? It's different water than the Swanee River, and I'm not even suggesting you drink it without treatment, but it's different. I would drink Swanee River more quicker than the beach, right? Okay, so there are different standards for saltwater and freshwater, and the mill's historic wastewater was salty, and it's frankly the key reason the mill needed the pipeline was to get down to a salty area so it could assimilate, because we could not remove the salt. All right, mill's not operating now, right? Not making that salty wastewater anymore. It's a different wastewater now, all right? And so it's not the same wastewater, it's not the same in volume, it's not the same in constituents, right? What's in it. And so they have applied to move back to the freshwater location. And if you read their cover letter, they're up front. The only reason we're doing this is there's a risk, depending on how this lawsuit goes, that they're going to lose the ability, without a new deal with the Four Rivers, they'll lose the ability to use that pipeline. Right. And so if that happens, what do? And so they are applying as an alternative to go back to the old with a smaller, and frankly, I've looked at their application. It's freshwater now. Their wastewater is freshwater now that is even going down the pipeline, even going down to this lower area is freshwater. But when you move your point of discharge, you're not allowed just to meet the water quality standard, because everybody knows that even though you meet these standards that apply everywhere, you're going to have some amount of degradation. I mean, there's going to be some impact, even if you stay above the standards. And the Florida laws, regulations, I should say, actually say if you're going to degrade an area, even if it stays in the standard, you've got to go through this anti-degradation process. So the point of the anti-degradation process is to say, this will meet the standard, but there's a higher criteria if you're going to move your discharge and you're going to create some amount of degradation, and that's the anti-degradation policy, right? So that's what they're being requested to go through, okay, if that makes sense, right? And when they go through the anti-degradation policy, right, and that allows for protection of water quality above the minimum required by the classification standard, all right? So there's a higher level of standard that they have to pass. And there are things, you gotta, whether the proposed discharge will result, right? It's a key piece is gonna be this, is it in the public interest? If you see my first thing up there, it's gonna be a public interest test here, all right? And so they've got to answer a bunch of questions, right, in general, but they've got to prove this is in the public interest. And frankly, you represent the public interest, right? The county commission represents the public interest of the county, right? This is you. And there are some list of questions here that they're going to have to answer in that study. But at some point, they've got to come to you, right? They can't submit this study and ignore you all. You all get input on it, and so and that's the reason your county administrator, particularly, and Bob Kate said, hey, Chet, you need to start briefing the commission on this so that they have time to consider and think about this before it just shows up as a request here. And here again, we're less than a month away from when they say, so by the way, I haven't called them and they haven't called me and said, oh, we're doing it, I'm asking for it on this date, so I don't know their plans. I talked to DEP yesterday. They know they got to do it at some time. So I don't know what they're planning, all right? You'll find out, all right? But, so they've got to come and tell you, why it is critical, and they have no other alternative. There's some industrial, let's go to the next, I haven't been telling you, I apologize, let's go to the, right there. There's even a little higher criteria for an industrial facility, which this is, right, that they've got to demonstrate that the use of other discharge locations or methods. So they've got to do an alternative analysis also to say, hey, spray fields aren't available, deep well injection's not available, you know, whatever. They've got to do some level of alternatives to say, hey, that we really don't have any other alternative, right? Obviously, right now, they're going down the pipeline, but if that's cut off from their legal use, they've got to come up with an alternative way of discharging, right? And so, you know, they're gonna share what they've done, what they've looked at economically, what they've looked at is technically reasonable, and those things. And here again, in the end, public involvement and is critical. Now, there's not a specified process at this point, you know, steps you have to go through, but I will tell you, when I was at Buckeye, and of course this guy back here helped, you know, his public affairs helped us do it all the time. You know, we would come ahead of time and brief the county commission and try to convince you on why what we were doing was right and important and the best thing for the county. And then what we would do, we would ask for a resolution in support of what we were doing. And you may have thought we just wanted to publish it in the paper, and we did, but we also very much wanted to use it to say, we have the county support, right? And so at some point here, that's, you know, I can't imagine, I don't know what GP is going to do, but that's what they need to do. They need to come talk to you all to explain why this is critical for the good of the county. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit here at the end, but for the good of the county, and ask for your support in a resolution, right? So they're, at some point, you're required to do it, to get this study done. Okay? Any questions?
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
You used the term that DEP was requesting of them or telling them?
Well, the request is basically telling, you know, the request is provide us this. If you don't provide it, we may just deny the permit. So you know, yeah, the fact, it's polite. We live in a civil society. Yeah, but they, you know, it is a request, but there's also, and I'd have to get it, but if they don't respond to the request, you basically can have a denied permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry?
Well, we got that filling up with lawyers.
Probably.
So Chip, not knowing the future of that site, and meaning other industry that could potentially come and have the need to dump their waste, discharge their waste, so to speak. The DEP take it in consideration? I mean, because you don't know what that discharge would look like. So, I mean, is it with if
they really don't have the ability to yet, you know, for DEP really to analyze discharge points for the future, they've got to have an application, you know. So at this point, now you all can consider that when you talk to GP, but to DEP, they're pretty much what's written in the application and whether it meets the standard and criteria or not. And then, and I know, and I think I kind of heard the question, I know LaWanda has asked me, would DEP approve this point of discharge? And if GP is able to demonstrate with their technology that they will meet all the criteria and be able to show it's in the public interest where get your support, yeah, DEP will approve that discharge.
I just know, I mean, we got folks here that everyone's working hard in entertaining new industry to Taylor County.
Yeah.
And if it's allowed for them to go back and discharge into that river, then if new industry comes in and they don't, that's really not a probable location for them to discharge.
It may be, depending on the industry, though.
I'm just saying, depending on the industry, it could be, but I'm just saying that then, but we could potentially lose.
Well, that's why I want to talk to
businesses that want to come based on that being brought back up on that side of the road.
That's certainly what you all need to be listening to and thinking about as they come to you and ask for support on this anti-degradation. Now, I'm gonna go out there and give you my opinion on some things here at the end, but here again, it's just my opinion. Number one, I'm your consultant, giving you thoughts. I'm not even a Taylor County resident anymore. You know that. I bailed on you all. I live in Jefferson County now. Yeah, that's right. So so I'm not, don't fire me for that. You'll have a chance later. But anyway, I love Taylor County, but I don't live here anymore. So, and so, just making this, but I do think there's some things to think about, as you get to that point. But I wish I could tell you, I wish that there's no one here tonight, is there, from GP? It would have been good if they'd been here talking, and if they called me, I'd give them some insight from, same as I'm talking to you. Yeah. But
Mr. Chairperson, just a quick, to his point.
Yeah.
Is it possible that the board could support, moving that discharge point, but only if that's their only option? Because you have to have an option. So to your point, I think you do have an opportunity to say, we only want that moved if we have to, if the pipeline is no longer an option, because you still want that, any water, any of that, you still want it to go through the wastewater treatment plant. You don't want it.
They're not asking to bypass the wastewater treatment plant.
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
They're only bypassing asking to bypass the pipeline.
Right. So, but I think that your support could be conditional, perhaps?
I would think so.
Right. And that may be something
I
you
don't
want to
have to
consider.
for me, I just think it would be, my question is, we can all say no here, but I'm just saying, is DEP gonna take it into consideration that, hey, this county's trying to bring in some industry, and then.
They will on that anti-degradation, right, and we can get to that. I think my last, I was trying to prep, let me see what else I had there. Let me, if you don't mind, let me cover the timing of all this, and you'll have some additional opportunities, but I think those are very good questions that I can read in. Yeah, right. So, once the anti-deg goes in and they have the full application in, then DEP has 30 days to review the additional information, and they could decide, we missed some things, we need to ask them additional questions and send out another request for additional information, or they could decide they have sufficient information and begin to prepare the permit, but they basically have 90 days, and hopefully DEP won't take that, but they have 90 days to take that additional information, put the permit, the draft permit together, and then they've got to send it to EPA Region 4 and make sure that they have concurrence from the Atlanta EPA before they can put that, they actually do that, I'm actually jumping, they actually will do that, they will put a notice of draft permit out, a public notice, they'll put it in the newspaper, and they will put a draft permit out, and they will actually be a written permit, and everybody, County Commission, all the citizens, and everybody else can make comments, right? and send comments to DEP and say, oh, we think, that's not right, whatever. By the way, you can say, oh, I think that was an insufficient anti-degradation study that was the basis of this. You have a chance to say later if that's, you got that. And DEP is required to take all those comments and in their fact sheet, respond to them. Meaning say, we think this is good, it's right, we adjusted the permit in this way, or we think, though we received this comment, we don't think it has a basis, there was some misunderstanding here, we think it's still good, but they have to write it down. And then that goes to EPA, and EPA, the whole thing, and EPA will either concur or they will tell DEP some things they need to do. All right. And then when that's done, then DEP will finally issue the final permit. But even when it's issued, it's publicly noticed again. And there's a last chance you can petition for administrative hearing if you think there's something wrong at that point. Now, just to be frank with you, as you can kind of tell, it gets the standard of being able to get something changed gets harder as you move to the end, right? But there is even that last thing, you can petition and ask for an administrative hearing before an administrative law judge and say, what they have there is not correct, that needs to be changed, right? And so all that, could end up, and, just timeline, it could be a year from now if the max amount of time before they got a permit. Right. That is the potential. Right. Questions before we go talk about, kind of why you ought to think whether or not you ought to support it or not. Of course, again, that looks like no questions. All right.
I have a question from the public, if that's acceptable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, all right. No, you're in charge, not me.
I've heard that statement a couple of times, if the pipeline is cut off from legal use, okay?
Yeah.
And the thing that I only know this from reading the paper, so, I believe I understand the GP has been using the pipeline without paying for Rivers for use of the pipeline, and that may be the contention of this lawsuit. So if they lose the lawsuit, is it really because they don't want to pay for the use of it? And they could claim, we can't do it. We can't do it. Well, my question isn't it appropriate that county should consider, if it's just a matter of not wanting to pay for the use of the pipeline, is that a good excuse for changing?
He asked, the folks ought to ask them.
Right. So that's something I think I would encourage a county to think about. If it's really just that they don't want to pay for the use of the pipeline, to move it, I personally think it's not in the community's best interest. It took 20 years to get it, and to change the river from class 5 to class 3. And I personally think that would be a travesty for this community. I would encourage the board to consider it, and I might not be saying this right, so please rely on Chet's guidance. But if it's just a cost issue, I'm sorry, that may not be acceptable to this community.
They're required to share alternatives. And so it seems like to me, when they come with that, the anti-degradation study and ask for support, you'd say, well, where's the alternative where you're establish a new agreement with Four Rivers if you've been told to stop? Why isn't that an alternative? You ask them that question. Yeah.
Could I ask a question? Chet, is your understanding that GP is going to contend that they could take the wastewater and the surface water off the site, put it back in the old discharge point, and they would meet class 3 standards even when there's no flow in the river?
There is flow in the river. There actually is flow in the river. Yeah, and that's what their application is pretty close to that, believe it or not. I've reviewed the numbers. They got a little bit of nutrient issues. It's a very clean wastewater that's coming off right now.
Would they meet the class 3 standards, or would they need some sort of exemption or?
They are not allowed any exemptions, right? They must meet class 3 standards.
So they would need BOD?
Yes, yeah. And by the way, the numbers they've submitted, and I actually believe them, I think they're true, right? They meet those standards. It is not the wastewater of the past. It was not your and my wastewater. It's a new wastewater. They're not running. Yeah, they're not running. Yeah. It's actually, their challenges are gonna be a little bit of nutrients. Yeah.
But Chad,
Nitrogen and phosphorus.
thinking of the future,
Mhm.
I guess, I think the concern is if this permit is granted and something happens, then would a new user who has a different, obviously could have a completely different type of wastewater.
Correct.
Then would it be more difficult to move the discharge point back to the pipeline? Or like if we.
I don't, a new discharger is gonna have a new wastewater with new constituents in it.
Right.
And so they're going to have to do the analysis at whatever point of discharge they have, right? And are planning on, and they will have to go through the same level of analysis and all. You're gonna hear me say it, maybe I shouldn't, but the sad thing is, everything was designed for a pulp mill.
Right.
But that ship has sailed, unfortunately, right? Right, it would have been relatively easy for a new pulp mill operator, but whether you do, no matter what you do, it's different, and by the way, if it's a certain business and industry, it may be that they would be better discharging right there at the old discharge point. And that's just hypothetical. You don't know until you know what the wastewater is producing, right? So anyway, it's different, right? Now, and I know there's been previous discussions and all, the pipeline in place already, it's not a treatment facility. It's mostly, it has mixing capability at the end, but it's mostly a transport. So it's got opportunity for lots of industries. Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Now, but, obviously, private landowners have rights, as they should.
Yeah.
My opinion. And the private landowners got some contentions right now. Gotta work it out.
Another question.
Another question on that point, Chet.
Yeah.
I would encourage, or a statement, I would encourage the commissioners to realize that even though the Fenn Holloway has a natural flow now,
right,
very small, and that's part of the issue, and the reason why the discharge at the Peterson's Landing was one thing that was very valuable is there was a lot of water. So it made something that might have been an issue not an issue. And so whatever the new companies might be, the likelihood that they could meet the standards at the old discharge, and I don't know what it might be, but at industrial levels, I would bet it would have a hard time meeting class 3 standards. And so allowing the pipeline not to be an option, I think compromises our ability to bring in large industry. So just as you consider that.
You don't want to lose it.
Say that if I
If you can help it, you don't want to lose it.
Right.
Yeah.
Who
actually owns the pipe itself.
The pipe itself is owned by GP.
Right. So GP actually could come in and snatch it out of the ground.
Well, if they don't make a deal, I think the easement, the easement, if a deal, it requires that GP remove their that stuff. Yeah. So, my prayers are they make a deal.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
We don't have to debate that. I think we're all in alignment there. Yeah, that's right.
Discharge needs to go back into the.
Yeah, so let's talk my last slide. Go all the way to the end. Yeah. All right, so I want, Michelle's already been doing some of what I was intending there, but, I want to talk why you might want to oppose the permit issuance, right? And when you look at public interest, right, obviously if they've got, some other alternative, there's a straightforward one, but if they actually, you realize that, that they maybe don't, but so they're asking, or maybe it's not use the pipeline, but it's, maybe they have a spray field alternative and they have this alternative. So why would you want to support this alternative over a spray field as an example? Just thinking about it. And the key thing is, what if you got, and I don't know the answer to this, but what if you actually got helping the county right there in the river downstream right now? And I was trying to hypothesize, it's just me hypothesizing, if you had a canoe guide service that was already using the downstream Fenn Holloway, and they were running canoe stuff there, and here they come to you and say, this change in discharge is going to impact my business that I've got, this little small business I've got running here. Well, that may be a consideration that you want to say, hey, this is not in our public interest, right? But it isn't, there is an inclination to say, oh, I just want to oppose things, but I think you all know that you should have a basis for it. We think this is a negative because of these reasons. It impacts this business, it impacts the impression people have of Taylor County, even wanting to come to Taylor County, if that's the case. Here again, you have the pulse of your people, I don't. You've got to assess what are the public interest negatives. And there may be things out there that I'm totally unaware of that it would adversely affect, all right? And I acknowledge that. You've got the power, okay? I do want you to think about, because I'm sure just what we've been through with GP, the inclination is to not help them, frankly, right? There's a little bit, our gut is, oh, I don't really want to help them, right? Yeah, and that, that's just human, right? Yeah, right? But I want you to think about this. They are working at cleaning it up. And that we're going to see a more detailed plan, right? And right at the moment, being able to discharge wastewater is key to them, I think, is key to them continuing to move forward on that. So if they didn't have an alternative, and if you were to stop them, and I'm going to speculate here a little bit, if you were to stop them, they likely are going to cut that pump off, right? That I've told you is beneficial. There's no permit requirement for them to run that pump. There's actually no time permit requirement for them to finish their demolition and their remediation. They're not on a timeline. Meaning if you potentially, and this is what you need to talk to them about, if you were to say, no, we're going to oppose you, they may have no choice but to stop what they're trying to do right now. So then that property sits longer, right? And potentially puts groundwater at risk. They have a monitoring requirement, but they don't have a pumping requirement. okay? So they shut the pumps off, there's monitoring, but frankly, you know, we weren't sure how all that would work when you shut all the pumps off and what you can monitor and see the plume leaving, but can you do something about it, right? If you're monitoring. So I would recommend you get a clear view to help them get done with this, right? And get it done. I think what Lawanda said, I think there's some conditions you can put on your support. I would think a permit is issued for 5 years. There may be a way to even say, hey, you know, this ought to be done and gone, and we're in a new Taylor County from an opportunity here by the time this permit comes back up again, right? And get it, and you know, here again, it's my opinion, it's actually a point of negotiation you have. You know, you have something to offer them. What are they offering you?
So as they progress in dismantling this location.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the look at that water being pumped, whether it ends up through, you know, continues through the pipeline or back to another location? I mean, is there like a long-term time frame they have to do it first?
I don't know. Their studies have got to show that. I think, you know, and you probably not surprised, there were things we contemplated while we were operating, you know, what types of things happen, you know, there are options. I would think they don't want to keep that pump going forever. So there are things they can do, you know, frankly, basically groundwater walls in the ground built, you know, between the river and the plant site to keep any migration. You know, you can put a slurry wall in there to stop the migration of groundwater, right? You can cap things that you're leaving so you're not getting any percolation of water. But here again, I've not seen their plan. Those are techniques that are often used. It's frankly not different than basically closing out a landfill, right? That you cap it and you and I would think they would not want to pump forever, but I don't know what their plan is.
Did the city pump water out there a certain?
Reclaim water. They have a reclaimed water line out there.
That come from the city?
Yes, treated wastewater from the city.
I mean, would it be an option even for them to somehow reroute it back to the city? That water, does the city get any use for that water?
Honestly, the city has got to answer that. I did hear Bob Kate and John Hart say they had looked at that. Right. So I don't know, you know, it's obviously for them to answer. It is, you know, that reclaimed water line is a asset of the city that.
That was going to the cooling tower, wasn't it?
Well, there's 3 cooling towers, and then it also, they went to, and, you know, the R8 cooling tower and the TRS cooling tower, and then we never really used it, but it was on the turbine generator cooling tower too.
TRS is what?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
And that was 200,000 gallons a day.
Yeah, and I think it was capable of that, but I think it ended up even, in my memory, boy, and as I age, you know how that goes, but my memory was we were using less than that too. So, yeah.
Are you familiar with Madison County's closure of their landfill, and they had to monitor those wells for well over 20 years? And a consent order that they had to enter into? You heard anything about a consent order being served on GP?
I haven't. I'm not familiar specifically with Madison County's closure, but just about you are. Yeah, I can tell you are. I will tell you my engineering experience. I've not heard of a landfill that doesn't have extended long-term groundwater monitoring.
We
And
had to do it here.
yes, well, you know, and I would guess, you know, depending on what their plan is, that they're gonna have long-term monitoring. Now, that's different than long-term pumping 4 million gallons of water out of the ground a day and having to treat it, by the way. They can't just discharge that off-site. Yeah, they have to go through a treatment and, you know, permit system. So, anyway, so I wanted, you all, this is what you all thinking about, hopefully, what will be coming soon. So, any last questions?
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, because I don't know what to ask you. Really, but you know, when you first started, talking about, GP may come to us and want our help, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, that'll be a cold day.
Well, it may be cold.
But as I listen more, it's, you know, there's more to it.
I don't think they got a choice.
But you're
Some
gonna be
way,
available-
some form.
You're gonna be available to us when they come and.
By the way, the grant that went through Adams and Reese has got me paid already to do that review and provide power of form, at least to Lawanda, my input.
Thank goodness.
So, yeah, but I do end with, you know, don't, here again, you need to listen and hear them, but don't, you know, I can understand the gut reaction of just starting out with, I don't want to approve this, I don't want to approve this, I understand that.
Yeah.
But it may be in the county's best interest is the key thing you need to think about. Do what you're doing for the good of the people of the county, so there should be a connection there. So, anyway. All right.
People's already started catching fish and eating them out of that river.
Well, they should be able to with this
Well, I
change.
mean,
Yeah.
they're taking a chance doing that, in my opinion, you
Okay.
know, but, if they start dumping back in the river, you know, right out of the wastewater treatment plant like they did all these years, I would think the state would stop them, it wouldn't be fishable and swimmable again, it would be.
Well, if it was like the old wastewater, that would be correct, you know, we couldn't claim it. And it was the point I was trying to make, Mr. Moody, is it's really a different wastewater than when we were operating.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but that sludge is still there. They got to do something with it. And if they run it through that wastewater treatment plant, it's actually worse than ever they run the mill. You know, so I'm just getting that out there because I got people asking me about it. They've been out there all their life. They've seen it all and they know what's going on.
You should make sure you ask them. We'll ask them when they come talk to us.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
How are they gonna handle that sludge that we know is bad stuff? Yeah, it's not gonna
And
go.
if it's going in the east cell,
Well-
and they didn't have a pipe, then, I mean, to me, that sounds
They
like.
can't discharge it, I know that, you know, so it's not, it's, you know, here again, they've gotta meet, and I send to Lawanda, but I've watched their monthly report right now, and, you know, it's pretty clean wastewater coming out there right now. You know, and they're bypassing, now they starting all that stuff up, it may change, I know that, you know, they work on it, so. I'm gonna show that, so. All right, very good, hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Jed.
Hey, Chet?
All right.
Chet,
Yes.
when do you think we need another update? Do you want to just let me know when you have?
Well, I don't recommend, you know, I know I was willing to come back 2 weeks from now if you need me, but unless the commissioners request, I would say we ought to, you know, if GP comes and says, hey, we need to meet with you all, then, you know, I would assume you'd say, hey, come chat, come be involved, right? Otherwise, we gotta wait until.
October the 11th.
Yes, correct, yes.
So we'll just be on standby?
Yes, and of course, you'll get my regular report I send you on a monthly basis anyway, here at the end of the month.
All the way from Monticello.
All the way from Monticello. Living up there in the dream. Close to grandkids, as you know, that ends up being the driver. Yeah, sir. Thank you. Yep.
All right, we'll move to county staff item 25, the board to consider approval of request for a letter of concurrence for setback waiver by the Sunset Place Condominium Association, presented by Terrence Keeper, building official.
Our district is working with Sunset Place to submit a package to the Division of State Lands in order for them to be able to renew and modify their submerged land lease. Following the reconstruction of their dock after the hurricanes, the dock configuration and the lease area altered slightly. The current configuration puts the new lease envelope 1 foot closer to the riparian line compared to the former authorized lease area. Also, the terminal platform of the dock is now 9 foot 2/10 from the riparian line. So because the leased area and structure lie within the 25-foot riparian buffer, we are required to include a letter of concurrence in the package. Taylor County had provided a setback waiver prior, so our agency is looking to include an update.
And Terry, this was approved, this is recommended by the tech review committee.
Yes, it's 1 foot.
Gotcha, I got you. But I'll ask you to take a review, that's, they recommend it. Okay. Any questions from the board? No. You got a motion to approve it?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Eagle.
Roll call.
Second by Commissioner Dents.
All right, Commissioner Amos,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman, Commissioner Fiegel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dents.
Yeah.
Thank you.
26, board to approve recommendation of bid award to Anderson Columbia Incorporated and construction contract in the amount of $2,959,290.51 for runway 12-30 rehab at Perry Foley Airport, agenda by Melody Cox.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, madam.
As you know, we were awarded an SDOT grant in the amount of $3,525,321 for the runway 1230 rehabilitation. There is no match for the county. We received just one bid, the last board meeting to award the contract, and that was Anderson Columbia, and it was in the amount of $2,959,291.51. We're requesting board approval to award this contract to Anderson Columbia to move forward with this rehab project. And again, there's no match due from the county.
That's for the airport?
Sir?
That's for the airport?
Yes.
I move.
Got a motion by Commissioner Dents, second by Commissioner Fiegel, all in favor? Thank you, Melanie. Hold tight there. We got item 27, the board to review and approve letter requesting modification number 3 to sub-grant agreement between the Department of Commerce and Taylor County approving a 6-month extension from January 31, 2026 to July 30, 2026 to the Community Development Block Grant contract number 20DB-03-72-01-805 for housing rehabilitation and or replacement projects, agenda by Melody Cox.
We are requesting this extension for the home. We would be complete and don't have to request an extension. This is for the home of Justin Wimberly and Amber Sheeper. It's located in the Shady Grove area. Originally they were to be a rehab. The home has deteriorated substantially since they were approved due to weather impact. So we now need to do a demolition and new construction. There is a variance that's going to be required due to there's not sufficient area for a septic system and there may be a well issue. The health department has indicated that this will not be approved till probably November. Without that, we won't have enough time to construct their new home. So we are requesting an extension of 6 months to make sure that we have sufficient time to get the town fully constructed and a certificate of occupancy is issued.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Flegel to approve, got a second? Second by Commissioner Freeman, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, County Administrator, item 28, the board is to consider approval of the subdivision participation and release from in order to participate in the participation packet of the opioid settlement.
So if you recall, I think the last meeting, I brought you a very similar agreement, but that was with a different manufacturer. This is a new settlement agreement with 8 opioid manufacturers concerning alleged misconduct related to opioids. I do not have an amount yet, but this is the first step in order to be able to receive those funds. And it is recommended by Romano Law Group that we participate.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve, all in favor? Aye. The board to consider approval of agreement with NWS Health Network for implementation plan for Taylor County opioid settlement fund expenditures.
So, that's supposed to be implementation, I apologize. This is a different pot of money. So this is our annual agreement with NWF. They actually act as the money funnels through them. And in the past, this is what we utilize to provide services through DMH. So my request would be for us to continue the same agreement that we have with DMH. This next fiscal year is $80,960. If the board approves this agreement with NWF, then I would bring another agreement with DMH in order to continue their programs.
Is there any way that we can get reports from DMH about their activities? I'd kind of like to know, how this is going and.
So they reported just recently, but would you like quarterly reports from them?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
All right, any other questions? Another question, or kind of motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Ridley, got a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Flegel, all in favor? All right, go to item 30. The board to consider approval of a renewal contract for catastrophic inmate medical insurance administered by Hunt Insurance Group, presented by County Administrator.
So this is a annual renewal of our inmate medical, catastrophic inmate medical insurance. We've had this policy for a number of years. The annual cost for this year is $22,500. They have agreed for the 3rd year in a row to give us a rate pass, but they said this would be the last year, which is fine. We can address that again. I think there are other ways to keep these, to keep the cost of this insurance down. So it's the same policy that we've had for a number of years. And again, it's for catastrophic inmate medical insurance.
Should we be looking around and shopping?
So I think that after this renewal that we can act, yes ma'am, then especially since they've indicated, okay, we'll give you one more rate pass, but don't ask again. To me, that's, and there aren't many sources of this coverage, and I've asked them at different times, fine, okay, either give us a rate pass or just reduce, what your cut of it. But I think that we can certainly look at that for next year.
Any other questions?
It's negotiable. Give it that, Mike. You're good at getting that.
We got a motion by Commissioner Flegel to approve, have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moody, all in favor? Item 31, the board to consider confirmation of the appointment of Patricia Seidler as Assistant County Administrator.
So I have supplied you with a copy of Ms. Sadler's resume. She's here with us this evening. I am requesting approval to hire Ms. Patricia Sadler as Assistant County Administrator. She has 25 years' experience in local government as an employee of the Taylor County Sheriff's Office and is currently a corrections captain at the Taylor County Jail. She was the #1 candidate with the interview committee and has tentatively accepted the position contingent upon board approval. I have personally worked with Ms. Sadler for a number of years and would consider it a very positive impact to our organization if the board will agree to hire her.
What's the salary?
The starting salary is
63,128.
Any questions from the board?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Figler, we got a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second by Commissioner Mooney, all in favor?
Ms. Sadler's, welcome aboard. Ms. Sadler's starting date will be, she's provided a 2-week notice to the sheriff. Now, I have told her, we absolutely want a smooth transition at the jail. So we will continue to work with the sheriff's office and the jail if they, as they need assistance.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to item 32, the board to review and consider approval of fiscal year 2025-2026 budget letter to Taylor County Sheriff.
So according to, or per state statute 30.49, we are required to provide notice to the sheriff if his budget is amended, and in this case, it was reduced. So this is just a formal letter that provides the actual request, which was $9.5 million. The budget was, the sheriff agreed to reduce his budget by $286,044, which left the $9.2 million budget that we were all discussing. Then it was reduced by the $120,000 for the 2 work squad correctional officers, an additional reduction in operations of $200,000, which leaves fiscal year 26 approved budget of $8.9 million. So this would be a letter that would be signed by the chairperson and delivered to the sheriff per state statute.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Figler to approve, in a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mooney, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will move on to comments and concerns from the public for non-agenda items. Anyone from the public? Jim, I know you can't say
No, really?
Anyone
Not ready.
online? Anyone online? All right. We'll move on to board information items. Commissioner Figler,
Don't have anything.
Commissioner Dix.
No, okay.
Commissioner,
Well, I'll just restate, I'm appreciative for consideration and this question tonight, both here. Thank you, there's a lot of good suggestions. And again, look forward to the next meeting.
very good, Commissioner Mooney. All right, nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Dix, we have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Figler, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.